Hey there, my name is Anel. My story will be about my deepest disappointment in a person. Doubly terrible is that this was my crush and that I caught him doing something juicy. It was just a nightmare. I hope for your words of support. Please write them in the comments below the video. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Last year, when I went to another dance training session, the girls and I decided to skip the training session. My friend Pamela just loved to roller skate. She was always drawing us into the roller hole. I didn't really know how to skate, but I supported her initiative. As soon as we entered the hall, loud, cheerful music began to sound. I realized that I was thirsty and hungry. While the girls were changing into their shoes, I decided to go to the cafeteria, got us something to eat, and returned to the table. I buried my face in my phone and ate a sandwich at the same time. Then suddenly I heard an awkward, I'm sorry. I looked up and saw a guy standing in front of me. He was so handsome. Tall, blonde, well-dressed, and he looked at me like he was about to kiss me, or at least that's what I thought at the time. Yes? I asked, and he told me, You sat on my jacket. I'm sitting here, he said, and only at this moment I noticed I was sitting on someone's jacket in an impudent way. I didn't even notice because of the food tray, but it was so warm and soft. I jumped up, apologizing wildly. I wanted to quickly pick up his things from the chair and accidentally pushed the tray. The hot coffee fell right on his pants and my cheeks burned with embarrassment. The guy stood in a state of shock, silently took napkins, and began to dry himself. I apologized again and helped him with the napkins. He smiled and reassured me, saying that it was okay, that everything was fine. I didn't really like those jeans anyway, he said, laughing. I felt so uncomfortable that I didn't know what to do with myself. My name is Adam, he said, and held out his hand, and I held out mine in return and said my name. Then he asked me who I was with, and I pointed to my friends, who had already gathered in a group and were looking for me, whispering. I picked up the cups and food from the floor and wanted to move, but he asked me to stay. I don't really ride, I just brought my little sisters here and keep an eye on them. Do you mind my company? He asked. I shook my head and sat back with a smile. I talked to him about where he came from, where to study and all that. Adam was a very nice young man. After our time was over, the girls came over and offered to go visit Pamela. I packed my things, apologized again, and almost at the entrance, Adam came running to me and asked for my phone number. We exchanged contacts, and all the way, the girls asked me about him. I really liked Adam. He was not only beautiful on the outside, but also interesting on the inside. It was beautiful. I came home in the evening, and just as I was about to go to bed, I received a message. Hi, what are you doing? It was him. We started texting, and then he called me. We chatted for a few hours, then he called me the next day and asked me to go to the movies with him. Every time we met, I realized that I was becoming more attached to him, but I didn't quite understand what he was doing. Adam came to our city only recently. He didn't really know anyone, but he was warm and cold to me. When I was around, we talked a lot, but when we didn't see each other, he disappeared. It was more than 2 weeks and he hadn't kissed me, and I didn't ask for it first. And then I decided to invite him to dinner myself. He refused and then called back an hour later and said that he would come. We went to my favorite restaurant, I ordered us food and we drank wine. Adam seemed to me so beautiful, well-groomed, he had smooth skin, clean ironed clothes. I asked him how he was doing here. He just said that sometimes he missed his old town, his friends. Suddenly, someone called him on the phone. It was his little sister. She asked him to come home urgently because her beloved cat was stuck in a tree, and she asked him to help. He didn't want to go, but I talked him into it. We went to his house, took off the cat, and his sister went to bed. Adam invited me to his room. We sat there for half an hour. He poured me coffee and realized that he was somehow uncomfortable. There was a feeling of anxiety, and I decided to go home. Just as he was about to walk me out, I met his father on the doorstep. Oh, Adam, you didn't say you had a girlfriend. Very nice, he said, holding out his hand. I met him, and then Adam suddenly pulled me to him and told his father that he wanted to spend time with me, and his dad immediately went to his room. As soon as I stepped out of the door, Adam looked up at the window where his father was watching us and then kissed me. It was so unexpected. I had waited for this kiss for a very long time, so I returned it. At that moment, the taxi arrived. I got in and went home. Inside, I had strange feelings. Like I was happy, but I was also bothered inside and I couldn't understand by what. After that day, Adam disappeared again. He was gone for 3 days. He did not answer calls and texts. I was worried and decided to go to his house. In the evening, I called a taxi to the same address, knocked, but no one answered. There was loud music in the house. I went inside, went up to Adam's room, and opened the door a crack. What I saw discouraged me. I was in shock. In the room stood Adam and another guy. They danced together, not paying attention to anyone. They hugged each other and then Adam kissed him, at which point I let out a fright in the form of a scream and they turned around. Adam started to panic, just like me. He pulled me into the room and closed the door. At first, we were silent for a long time, and then his friend said, "My name is John." I introduced myself too, but I couldn't think straight. My hands were shaking. Adam sighed, sat down on the bed, and said, "I'm sorry. You know everything now. We left that city because Dad found out about me. He was hoping that a change of scenery would help me, and then I met you, and you decided to use me as a cover," I continued, a note of resentment in my voice. "Yes," he said, looking down at the floor. It was such an absurd situation that I couldn't find any more words. I got up and went to leave, while Adam was begging me to forgive him, but I kept quiet. I just looked at him and left. I haven't seen or spoken to him since. Most of all, in this situation, it offended me that a person who cannot defend his interests is ready to use others just to lie to everyone around. How can you do that? By the way, yes, I also do not go roller skating anymore. Do you think he did the right thing? My name is Val. Please tell me how you met your partner. How often have you had cases where your parents forbade you to meet? Unfortunately, my boyfriend and I went through this, and all because I'm not from the family they planned to set up with their son. This is a modern story of Romeo and Juliet, which turned out, only the end is different. Do you want to know more? Then look. I was born and raised in a simple family. My parents worked like horses all their lives, and we have a family business, a small grocery store on the next street. We weren't poor, but we weren't super rich either. Once a guy came to us. I noticed him because he was surrounded by some strange men in black suits. They came to our store, searched everything, and only then did he come in. A guy was walking around our store, and then he came up to me at the checkout and asked if we had fast food noodles. I was surprised why he needed it. I said yes and went to show him, but when he asked me which one was the best and cheapest, I gave him a couple of packs. He read the cooking method for a long time, and then he was like, "Can you cook it for me? Or show how it is done?" I said I didn't have time for this and went to the checkout, but he didn't fall behind. He pulled $100 out of his pocket and said it was for the service and $2 more on top for the noodles. Well, okay. I put the kettle on, made some noodles, and he made the other one himself. After a couple of minutes, it was ready. I gave him a disposable fork and invited him to sit on the couch to eat. He ate with such an appetite that it felt like he hadn't been fed in ages. He also asked me to eat the second one sitting next to him. It was a good thing that there were no more customers at that moment. We ate, and then he said, "My name is Ted," and holds out his hand. I shook it and said my name. Ted asked for a drink, and I gave him a can of Coke. I asked him what he was doing there, because I didn't want him to eat in such places and this kind of food. Ted said he was studying a different side of life. "Ah, I see. The quirks of the rich," I said, getting up from the couch. He laughed, then asked what else he didn't know. "You can't tell me everything. There are a lot of good things. Delicious, simple, and sometimes completely free," I said. He asked me to show him all this, but I told him I had to work. Then he offered me a deal. "Will you work for me? I'll pay you well, but you have to be there almost always. Now it's still vacation. There is no school." he suggested. Ted did offer a good amount, and I agreed. Then he took me to the store and bought me a black suit. You pretend to be my bodyguard, like my guys, so that there won't be any questions from my parents or anyone else. Well, okay. I agreed, put on the suit, gathered my hair in a strict ponytail, and we went to have fun. That day, Ted tried hot dogs for the first time, rode the carousels, ate chips, and we played games in the amusement park grounds. Then Ted said that we should go to his house so that he would show his mother, and then he promised to send me home with the driver. When we got there, my jaw dropped. There was a castle like I'd never seen in my life. It seemed to me that if I got lost there, I would never find a way out, and I would grow old in the search. Ted had a quick talk with his mom and headed for the exit, and I stood among the big guys and stared at the walls. And then his mother asked about me. I looked at him in confusion, and he interrupted me and said that I was his new bodyguard. His mother objected. Like, what kind of bodyguard am I? She added that if his father found out, he would be unhappy, but he said that everything would be fine. We saw each other every day, and within a week, I had earned a great car. I was happy. I couldn't believe that this was happening to me. At the same time, I felt like I was getting used to Ted and wanted to spend time with him myself. Then he got sick. I wrote to him, but he said he couldn't get out. I made chicken broth and went to see him. Ted gave me an employee pass, and I got in without any problems. His parents weren't home, so I fed him in peace. Ted was touched. We spent the whole day together. I took care of him, and in the evening, we decided to take a little walk in his garden. It was nice. We talked a lot, and I felt warm around him. Well, then he had to go and walk me to the driver, and he suddenly kissed me. It was beautiful. However, I also got infected and was treated for another week after that. Ted felt guilty, so he visited me, brought me food, and met my family. We started dating. True, I had already heard my father say that we were not a couple, that his parents would not allow such a union to take place, but I did not want to listen to him. We were in love with each other. After another conversation with my father, I went to Ted. He was surprised when I came and I told him everything in tears. Ted told me everything was going to be all right, reassured me, and then told me that he would come up with something. The next day, he invited me to visit. I found out that it was his birthday. I was so embarrassed to be without a gift, but he said it wasn't a birthday party, that it would just be the two of us. The staff gathered us food and we had to go on a picnic. On the way, we stopped at a gas station near the house. While he was filling up the car, I bought something else for us. He came up to me and kissed me, and at that moment, another car pulled up and his father got out. I wanted to sink through the ground. Ted lied about his bodyguard and his father being like, "Yeah, I can see her guarding you." He told us to go with him, and we got in the car and went to the house. We were silent all the way, and his dad looked at me. In his father's office, we were asked questions like how long we've known each other and all that, and when his father found out that I was from a simple family, of course, he immediately forbade us to communicate. This was to be expected. I was upset, but Ted said that he and his father had a long-standing agreement that Ted would go where his father said he would, provided that Ted chose his own servants, bodyguards, and friends. It must have gotten to him that his father was controlling too much of his life. After this conversation, he officially employed me as a bodyguard so that we would be together most of the time. What you won't do for love. All I had to do was wear a black suit. I do not know what will happen next, but for now, his disgruntled father does not say anything, and we live in the present. What do you say, friends? Put likes and write comments to my story, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.